Making news this Tuesday, the 24th of March, Trump backs down on threats to obliterate Iran's energy infrastructure, but Tehran has called his claims of productive talks fake news to manipulate oil markets. Also, a devastating tragedy, two teenagers aged 14 and 15 killed when their trail bike crashes into a bus in Sydney's west. One of the biggest strikes in Victorian history as 30,000 poorly paid teachers walk off the job. And a total miracle, a flight attendant found alive and strapped to her seat on the tarmac after a deadly airport crash in New York.
This is 7's National News with Natarsha Belling.
Good afternoon. The US President has backed down from his 48-hour ultimatum to wipe out Iran's energy facilities. But the war is far from over, with Donald Trump now giving Tehran just 5 days to fulfil his demand to open the Strait of Hormuz. Jacqueline Robson has the details.
Well, it's been a very upbeat US president who has said and announced that there has been productive dialogue on week 4 of this war. We are well past that drastic deadline given by Donald Trump. So instead of blowing up Iran's energy grid, we are now talking about potential peace talks with unnamed senior Iranian officials. The US president posted on Truth Social, the US and Iran have had very good and productive conversations, instructing a pause on any and all military strikes on power and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period. That's prompted a big financial surge. Oil and gas prices have dropped. There was a bump in stocks too. But Tehran says it has no idea what Donald Trump is talking about. The Iranian parliamentary speaker calling it fake news to buy time. The US president, though, says there was an 11th hour call that led to the breakthrough.
They want very much to make a deal. We'd like to make a deal too. We'll at some point very soon meet. We're doing a 5-day period. We'll see how that goes. And if it goes well, we're going to end up with settling this. Otherwise, we'll just keep bombing our little hearts out.
Pakistan has even offered to host face-to-face talks between the two countries, but on the front line, there has been more blows traded. Israel says it's blown up a Revolutionary Guard headquarters, and the Isfahan nuclear site in Iran has also been smashed again. In Lebanon, rockets from Hezbollah landed in northern Israel. There were 8 people injured on this side of that front. There is more intense fighting happening in the southern part of Lebanon.
Jackie, thank you. And later in the bulletin, Chief Reporter Chris Reason has a behind-the-scenes look on the front line in Lebanon with terrorist group Hezbollah. History is being made in Canberra as we go to air this afternoon with the first ever address to federal parliament by a female foreign leader. This is a live look at the House of Representatives where European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is about to make that address in a special joint sitting. That's just after Australia and the European Union locked in a new free trade deal worth billions of dollars. And Australia and the European Union, as we've just mentioned, have finally clinched a free trade deal. The deal signed in federal parliament was mentioned just minutes ago. Live now to Tim Lester, who is covering all these developments from Parliament House in Canberra. Tim, good afternoon. The deal is massive, isn't it?
Tash, this has been a long time coming. Negotiations began in June 2018. So almost 8 years on, Prime Minister Albanese has now welcomed the President of the European Commission here to Parliament. You can see a live shot and applause now as she's welcomed in to be the first woman ever to speak as a foreign leader in our House of Representatives. So the speech will in itself be very interesting and worth a look. But business here too for the European Commission President in signing a trade deal with Australia that, as we say, has been very hard fought. The Prime Minister says the deal that they have just inked will be worth $10 billion a year to our bottom line in this country. It eliminates tariffs on Australian wines, seafood and horticulture. Also an 8-fold increase in access for Australian beef to European markets. Now, the Prime Minister is particularly happy about that. I should say the National Farmers Federation has already been critical of that, so that represents an important difference. And on the EU side, it removes the luxury car tax on most of our European vehicle imports. The two leaders have talked the deal up.
The Australia-European Free Trade Agreement will lower trade and investment barriers between Australia and the EU, a market of around 450 million people.
Today, we are telling an important story to a world that is deeply changing. A world where great powers are using tariffs as a leverage and supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. In our story, open, rules-based trade delivers positive sum outcomes.
So here the Albanese government has confirmed today changes to the Fair Work Act designed to give truck drivers faster renegotiation of their contracts. This, of course, to help them as they struggle with fuel costs. And one other note on the talks with the European Union here today, the two leaders have also signed an EU-Australia Defence Pact. Tash.
And a historic day. Tim Lester, thank you. Meantime, hundreds of petrol bowsers across Australia have run dry as the conflict in Iran and panic buying squeeze supply. While the government has announced an agreement with Singapore to keep the supply of fuel coming from refineries there, farmers and truck drivers are warning grocery prices will continue to soar. To tell us more, we're joined this afternoon by international supply chain expert from the Australian National University, David Leaney. David, thanks so much for joining us. Let's start with this deal from Singapore. Will this help our fuel crisis?
We have always got most of our fuel via Singapore, and this locks in with a bit more certainty. So definitely it's a positive. It doesn't change the supply because the supply was always coming through Singapore, but it does give more security and certainty for that supply.
So, David, where is the truth here? Because we've seen a lot of mixed messaging, especially from the federal government and the energy minister, saying there isn't a supply issue and then there could be a supply issue. What's the truth?
The truth is actually relatively straightforward. There's no difference in the amount of fuel that came into Australia last month and last week to this month and this week. So exactly the same amount of supply. The issue isn't supply, it's distribution and it's demand, consumption. So there is, in a couple of weeks' time, going to be a small dip in the level of supply, but that's only a few percent. And so essentially our supply is pretty secure. So the issue, distribution, because of floods and transport problems around the country because of the very wet season in the northern half of Australia. And then the major issue, of course, of consumption, of demand, with people panic buying. And our system just isn't designed to cope with that. So it needs to have a steady, regular pattern. And once people settle into that steady, regular pattern, things will improve.
So, David, none of us can predict, especially over the last 24 hours, exactly what may happen with the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. If it does continue to escalate, is that going to cause further supply issues for us in the long term?
Absolutely, unfortunately, and it's very encouraging news in the last 24 hours to hear President Trump talking about a deal with Iran. Of course, that's been denied by Iran, so we don't know whether there's some secret deals or whether the threats were a negotiating tactic in the first place, or in fact that there's an understanding, somebody has advised the president, the implications of what he was actually proposing with the attacks on civilian energy infrastructure in Iran and the retaliatory attacks that would take down some of the energy infrastructure across the Middle East. So if we get a de-escalation, then this peak will pass, the problems will resolve over a few months, and things will slowly get back to normal. If we get an escalation in that situation, then it could be very, very significant for Australia. At the moment, we're only looking at a future supply decrease of probably around 5%. If the escalation continues, that will be 25%, and that would severely impact our ability to do farming, to do transport. And very briefly, the issue isn't just fuel, it's natural gas, it's fertiliser, it's chemicals, and all of those things are important out of the Middle East. Major
consequences. We appreciate your analysis. Thanks so much for joining us, David.
Thank you, Tash.
Two Sydney teenagers aged just 14 and 15 have been killed after a petrol trail bike they were riding on crashed into a bus. Sam Payne reports from Bosley Park in the city's west.
Good afternoon. Well, two families have been left shattered after two best mates lost their life here at Bosley Park last night. Emergency services were called to the Liverpool-Parramatta T-Way near Restwell Road just after 7 p.m. after a dirt bike slammed into the side of a commuter bus before becoming trapped underneath.
He saw the bus hit about a U-ey and this guy went straight under the bus.
The rider, a 15-year-old boy, and his 14-year-old passenger were treated at the scene, but both passed away.
I was very good friends with him. I heard that something happened to him, and so I rushed over here to see what happened, and unfortunately the wrong thing ended the wrong way.
The bus driver, a 48-year-old man, wasn't injured but was taken to hospital for mandatory testing, while passengers on board were also unharmed. There has been long safety concerns regarding the T-Way here in Bosley Park, and although it is reserved for only buses and emergency vehicles, riders often use it.
We get 20 or 30 kids riding up and down this T-Way every single night. Regulation is only as good as the enforcement, and we haven't seen that enforcement.
The boys were both wearing helmets, and it's understood the trail bike was registered to a family member, but given their ages, they weren't licensed to use it.
As a community, we have to be educating these kids and saying to them, this is just dangerous behaviour.
Police established a crime scene here last night and are now trying to piece together exactly what happened.
Sam, thank you. Tens of thousands of teachers have walked off the job in Victoria, leaving parents scrambling to make other arrangements. Ainsley Kosh is at the Teachers Union headquarters, where one of the biggest teachers' strikes in the state's history started a few moments ago.
30,000 teachers are expected to take strike action today in what's set to be the largest industrial action for union members in almost 2 decades. They've begun their industrial action here at Trades Hall and they'll march through the city to Parliament House today. They're calling for a 35% pay rise and better conditions. They say they're the worst paid teachers in the country and the conditions are untenable. So far, the state government has offered a 17% pay rise, but the union says that's not enough.
I do regret that the union has taken industrial action today. This is an 18.5%, $2.6 billion in wages ready to go immediately.
I think they should get the same pay as the teachers in New South Wales.
The teachers need to be paid more. We need to honour and respect the things that they do for our kids.
It means that 500 schools will be impacted across the state today, and it means that parents have had to keep their children at home. So many schools and families have been disrupted. The teachers say they don't want to take this action, but they need to. And if the state government doesn't meet their demands today, well, they've warned more industrial action will be on the cards.
Ainsley, thank you. Australia's biggest airports and a major tourism body have joined forces calling for urgent upgrades to our international arrivals process. Aviation editor Blake Johnson joins us now with the details. Blake, good afternoon. They fear we are lagging behind on border technology.
And I think, Tarsha, a lot of passengers might agree, especially if they arrive in Australia during that morning peak when those queues for passport kiosks and the smart gates can stretch almost the length of the arrivals hall. At Sydney Airport today, representatives gathered from our 3 biggest airports, Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, plus the Airports Association and the Tourism and Transport Forum. They are calling for increased federal funding to urgently invest in a more modern border. We already pay $70 each arrival tax every time we land in Australia. The group wants more of that to go to infrastructure at the border.
We believe that this can be funded budget neutral for the federal government.
So a manual process of presenting a passport to an officer is obviously not going to be existent in other nations going forward. It's going to be an ecosystem of biometrics.
3 airports represented here alone are investing $15 billion in further developing our airports and make them world class. That means that we need better borders.
The airports are up against it here because everyone blames them when they're stuck in a queue at immigration control. But really, it's up to Border Force and the federal government to sort this out, especially, Tash, as we head towards Brisbane 2032.
Absolutely, Blake, thank you. Easter baskets will be lighter and more expensive this year. Consumer watchdog Choice has found the cost of Easter treats has increased, with some products also shrinking in size. Cadbury's Easter Egg Hollows has dropped from 408 grams in 2024 to just 340 grams this year, while the price has increased from $12.50 to $18. Hot cross buns have also fallen victim, with Aldi's Rocky Road-inspired buns now 20 grams lighter than just a year ago, without any reduction in price. Time for a quick look of the weather details now. Brisbane shower to 29, 27 and showers for Sydney. Canberra partly cloudy, top of 26. Melbourne shower to developing, 29 degrees. Showers for Hobart, top of 18. Adelaide sunny and a beautiful 31 degrees today. Perth sunny also, 30 degrees, and a shower to expected for Darwin with a high of 31 degrees. Coming up after this short break, human error to blame for a devastating airport crash in New York and air traffic controllers' desperate pleas. Plus, 7 Chief reporter Chris Reason takes us behind the scenes of Hezbollah heartland in Lebanon and one state's plan to crack down on handlebar hoons, confiscate and crush. A catastrophic runway collision at a New York airport that left 2 pilots dead and dozens more injured appears to have been the result of a tragic mistake. Rob Scott reports.
This was an absolutely horrendous accident, which at this early stage appears to have been the result of human error. It happened at New York's LaGuardia Airport last night. An Air Canada Express jet that was landing, slamming headfirst into a fire and rescue truck that crossed onto its runway. The damage was extensive. The cockpit decimated. The pilot and co-pilot both killed.
It was an aviation disaster, the likes of which we have not seen here in over 3 decades.
43 people were taken to hospital, including 2 from the fire truck. Dozens have since been treated and released.
We came in pretty hard. We immediately hit something and it was just chaos in there. We didn't have any directions because the pilot's cabin had been kind of destroyed. So somebody said, let's get the emergency exit and get the door in. Let's all jump out. And that's exactly what we did.
One of the cabin crew was ripped from the plane. She was found alive, still strapped into her seat on the tarmac. Audio from the control tower gives a glimpse into what may have happened. The controller apparently giving the truck permission to cross the runway to get to an incident with another plane just moments before the collision.
Frontier 4195, just stop there, please. Stop, truck 1, stop. Stop, truck 1, stop. Stop, truck 1, stop. That wasn't good to watch. Yeah, I know I was here. I tried to reach out to my staff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier. No, man, you did the best you could.
It's incredibly sad. It's troubling.
Investigators are on the ground examining the wreckage, trying to piece together moment by moment exactly what happened. While they do that, LaGuardia Airport, which has been shut for hours, is slowly beginning to reopen.
Rob, thank you. Back to the war now in the Middle East, and our chief reporter Chris Reason has been given a behind-the-scenes guided tour today by the leaders of the terror group Hezbollah. Chris, you have seen the front line in Lebanon.
Well, that's right. As well as the actual real war between Israel and Lebanon here, there is also the PR war, the public relations war. And this was what this was part of today. Effectively, a guided tour of the front line given by Hezbollah, the terrorist group, in their push to try and highlight what they say are Israel's war crimes. Now, Hezbollah, of course, controls key parts of this country. We'd reached out to their political wing to request access to some of the sites of the Israeli strikes, the devastating scenes we've seen over these last 2-3 weeks. We received a text on WhatsApp with the information on where and when to meet. We were given a location deep inside Hezbollah's heartland, told to meet them at 11 a.m. beside some giant posters of their Hezbollah heroes. And from there, we met with other international media and we're all taken on a guided convoy with a handful of those press to witness the sites of several bombings. A family of 6 killed at one, 2 families of 8 killed at another. Among those victims were children. They claim none of them had any connection to Hezbollah or the war whatsoever. Let's listen to the brother of one of the victims.
How much anger do you have now?
Actually, I have some peace inside because I know they just went to heaven, but I'm asking all the world to know that Israel are a monster.
Now, Hezbollah is, of course, a listed terror organisation with some 20 countries, including Australia, the UK and the US. But here in Lebanon, they've been part of the fabric of this country for decades. They have members of parliament, an enormous role in community services. They fund hospitals and schools. And of course, though, they are also a terror group. It's difficult to test the truth of their claims. But wherever you stand on this, the bottom line is over 1,000 people now have been killed so far in Lebanon, many of them children, and of course, over 1 million people displaced, having to flee their homes. That's a fifth of this country's population. Now, Lebanon says it has reached out to Israel for urgent peace talks. They say they are yet to hear back from that country.
Chris Reason, thank you. A Colombian Air Force plane transporting troops has crashed in the south of the country, killing at least 8 people. The aircraft took off from an airport deep in the South Amazon region bordering Peru before slowly descending towards the ground. Footage shows smoke and scattered debris as emergency workers search for survivors. 48 people have been rescued from the wreckage, leaving around 40 individuals unaccounted for. New South Wales will today introduce new laws in a hardline crackdown on e-bikes. Police will have the power to seize and destroy illegal devices with no chance of return. And Queensland is also set to follow suit with similar laws expected before Parliament this week. Taylor Aitken has the story.
Originally slated for later this year, the New South Wales government has sped up introducing tough new laws that will allow police to seize and crush illegal e-bikes. The legislation set to be introduced today will allow transport officers and police officers to have enhanced powers to permanently confiscate and destroy devices.
If you are riding one of these illegal e-motorbikes, if you're riding it dangerously, we're going to seize your bike and we will crush it.
E-bikes have surged in popularity amongst teenagers in the past few years, bringing with it antisocial behaviour and a 300% rise in injuries.
We are seeing people who are not the riders of these bikes also being very dangerously hurt and in some cases around the nation have been killed by the use of these bikes.
The government has already embarked on an e-bike crackdown, issuing hundreds of fines for traffic offences, but the opposition believes the new laws don't go far enough, wanting e-bikes to be registered so that dangerous riders can be held accountable.
We believe that a licence plate front and back of the bike identifies the rider and makes that identification easy so there's accountability for riders.
But the government was quick to rule that out, believing making registration mandatory would only put an unfair cost on riders who are looking for a cheaper form of transport.
Taylor, thank you. Convicted child killer Kelly Lane was back in court today, this time to support her long-term boyfriend. Patrick Cogan is suing his former employer, a Sydney private school, claiming he was wrongfully sacked over his relationship with the high-profile prisoner. The former PE teacher at St Pius College now taking his case to the Fair Work Commission. Kelly Lane was granted special leave today as she continues to serve an 18-year sentence for murdering her newborn daughter in 1996. Coming up next in sport with Alex Cullen, including breaking news at the Broncos after an ugly bust-up involving coach Michael Maguire. Plus, the winless Bombers promise to turn their season around. A first look at David Attenborough's gorilla story, one of the most iconic moments in wildlife filmmaking. And the determined pack of dogs who escaped their kidnapper to find their way home. Time for sport now with Alex Cullen. Alex, good afternoon. This is massive breaking news at the Broncos.
Sure is, Tash. Good afternoon to you. Defence coach Ben Teo has sensationally quit the club after a heated verbal altercation with Michael Maguire. Teo clashed with Michael Maguire over tactics in the lead up to the win over the Storm. Players were blindsided by the news this morning.
He's our defence coach and we try to pride ourselves on our defence as well as a team. So Benny's an exceptional coach and yeah, like I said, I haven't really got a comment because I don't know too much about the situation.
The Broncos take on the Dolphins at Suncorp Stadium in the Battle of Brisbane Friday night. Melbourne Storm coach Craig Bellamy admits he's unsure if Eli Katoa will ever return to playing rugby league. On Seven's The Agenda Setters, Bellamy told the panel there's still no timeline for the Tongan star's return from emergency brain surgery.
I don't know whether he'll play again. The doctors haven't made that decision yet, and I don't know when that decision will get made, to be quite honest. It was a major injury, and we certainly want El to be able to live the rest of his life in normal ways.
Katoa is helping out at Storm training and mentoring young players. In the AFL, Essendon forward Kyle Langford has put the blame squarely on the players after their horror show against Port Adelaide. The Bombers have conceded almost 280 points in the opening couple of games, but Langford has denied suggestions of a culture problem at the club.
It's my 12th year in the system, 12th year at Essendon, and I can confidently say this is the best I've felt about this group and the direction and the hunger of this group. We just need to be able to translate that into performance.
Essendon take on North Melbourne Saturday night. After a months-long inquiry into their Ashes humiliation, England cricket bosses have decided not to change a thing. Coach Brendan McCullum, Captain Ben Stokes and Managing Director Rob Key have all kept their jobs despite allegations of a drinking culture within the team. Key says mass sackings would have been the easy option.
Ultimately, it's about who do we think can take English cricket forward? And for me, that was Brendan McCullum.
In a social media post littered with swear words, you can see them right there, Stokes declared he has a lot more to give to English cricket. In the Caribbean, Georgia Vole made her first T20 century for Australia in Game 3 against the Windies.
Well, what a special moment for the 22-year-old.
Yeah, fantastic stuff from Georgia Vole tonight.
Vole made 101 off 53 balls as Australia reached 6 for 211. In reply, the West Indies lost 3 early wickets before the match was delayed due to wet weather. The Aussies are chasing a 3-0 series sweep. Australian sprinting's hottest talents, Gout and Lachlan Kennedy, will renew their rivalry at the Maurie Plant Meet in Melbourne this weekend. Kennedy stunned Gout in the 200-metre final at the meet last year.
It was a cracking race last year. I had so much fun and very excited to hopefully win it again. Hopefully we can run an even faster time.
The Maurie Plant Meet is live and free on 7 and 7 Plus on Saturday night. So you got North Melbourne against Essendon, Parramatta against Penrith, and now the Athletics Saturday night. What more could you want, Tash?
It's just too much. Alex,
too much sport's never enough, Tash.
See you soon. Thank you. Well, coming up next on the debrief, the plan to get school refusers back to class as attendance across the nation dives. Also, the RBA Governor's big house buy on rate hike day sparks debate, and the men getting in touch with their emotions at a rage retreat. Welcome back. Experts are calling on the government to allow children to go to school part-time to improve attendance rates and also stem school refusal. Joining us this afternoon on the debrief are journalists James Royce from Melbourne and also Annabelle Brett from Mix FM on the Sunshine Coast. Good afternoon to both of you. This is a really interesting conversation. I'm going to come to you first, James. Often school refusal is part of a more complicated scenario. Do you think this is a good approach?
Look, I've learned from years of managing difficult people, including Annabelle, our co-panellist today, that to solve a problem, you need to understand it. There could be a number of problems that kids aren't going, a number of reasons rather that kids aren't going to school. That could be they're being bullied. It could be that they're neurodivergent. It could be that their parents can't afford the cost of petrol. So we need to find out what are the driving factors that are preventing our kids from going to school, addressing them, and then we can solve the problem. It's really important that our kids get the education, so we need to understand what is preventing them from getting there, and then we can tackle it.
Yeah, well said, James. That's so important. Annabelle, your thoughts on this? Because the other issue is the stats show this is actually a fallout for a lot of students and families from COVID.
That's understandable. I definitely don't think that there's a one-size-fits-all model when it comes to children's education. Not every single set of standards is going to suit every child. But I do worry all of these rule changes, how is that going to impact a parent who is working a 9 to 5 when childcare is already so stretched as is? I am panicked about getting to that stage when my child goes to school.
Yeah, great point. And we know also education is so important for so many kids right now. Moving on this afternoon, the head of the Reserve Bank, Michelle Bullock, has been slammed for buying buying a $2 million holiday home. Apparently, it was settled the same day interest rates actually were announced, the hike in them, and it's the Governor's third investment property reportedly in New South Wales. James, do you think this criticism is unfair?
I do. Who cares? She's got the money. She can do what she likes. If I had $2 million, you know what, I'd love to have a beach pad in Yamba. And if she did have to take a mortgage out to fund it, I wonder if she knows anyone at the Reserve Bank who could help her with rates. So who cares? Let her do it.
Excellent point. Do you agree, Annabelle? Because sometimes she is the messenger.
I mean, I would love to know when she locked in that rate, what extra information she might have had for that. It's fair. Like, if she has the money, she can definitely spend it on whatever she wants to. But she should also be open to criticism about said property that she's buying with exorbitant amounts of money. If she wants to get the people back on her side, happy to borrow it on weekends, lend it to the Australian public. I don't think that's that much too big of an ask.
James, I'm going to ask you a second question about that there. It's interesting with the Reserve Bank increase. You know, there's been a lot of criticism from economic experts saying, you know what, obviously with only just over 33% of Australians having a mortgage, that maybe increasing the official cash rate is not the right way to tackle inflation.
I was an arts student, so don't ask me about economics, but these people know what they're doing, and I know that they have been criticised for going too far, and I know that the previous governors promised that rates would be stuck at, 1% for 5 years. They're doing a really hard job, and it could be, again, I'm not an economist, it could be the least worst response, because if we don't do something, we're going to end up with hyperinflation, and we cannot have that.
Well, there, absolutely, hyperinflation is worse. And finally, this afternoon, a video of men hitting objects and swearing at a so-called rage retreat has gone viral. Participants paid $3,000 for the camp, which features activities designed to help them process strong emotions. Annabelle, your thoughts on this rage retreat?
I mean, men will do anything to avoid getting therapy, I feel. I'm actually not that against the concept of men going on these retreats together, because that's something that women have always nailed. We're great at coming together, communicating our feelings, talking about our fears. I just worry that we're playing too much into this men need a rage outlet. Why do they need a rage outlet? Is that not something we should be looking into deeper? Because it's not healthy, and it could be tying into another issue we definitely have in this country, which is domestic violence.
Yeah, absolutely. James, your thoughts on this?
I'm more concerned that they need to do something that costs $3,000 a day. Like, go camping with your mates, go to the gym, lift, punch a punching bag. Like, who has so much energy that they need to go on this? Like, but also too, like, how many people are going on a country? How many people live in America? 400 million. How many people go on this? So I'm not sure it's a huge issue, but good luck to the people that are charging $3,000 a day for this. Like,
yeah, they're the
what
winners,
a joke.
aren't they?
Yeah.
Indeed. We appreciate you both joining us today, James and Annabelle. Thanks so much.
No worries. Thanks.
Thanks, Tash.
Well, coming up after this short break, today's finance news. The share market is up on those ongoing hopes of a possible deal between Trump and Tehran. Also, Kylie Minogue and Margot Robbie join forces for fashion, and the cost of not keeping up with AI. All those details coming up next. Checking this afternoon's top stories now, and Donald Trump backs down on threats to destroy Iran's energy infrastructure, giving Tehran a reported 5 more days to strike a deal. 2 teenagers aged just 14 and 15 killed when their trail bike crashes into a bus in Sydney's west. 30,000 teachers walk off the job in Victoria in pursuit of higher wages and better conditions. Australia and the European Union reach a monumental free trade agreement, 8 years in the making. And a defence coach, Ben Teo, quits the Brisbane Broncos after a sensational fallout with coach Michael Maguire. Now, let's check today's finance news with James Tao from ING Bank. James, a bit of a change in the story on the share market at the moment with a possible deal over the war in the Middle East.
Yeah, afternoon, Tash. There is a little bit of optimism in financial markets in relation to some de-escalation between the US and Iran, and that certainly saw our share market pop higher on the open, up about 130 points or 1.6%. Some of that enthusiasm, though, has faded a touch. We are up about 26 points, or roughly a third of 1% at the moment. And what we saw has really helped push the market higher today is the material sector. So miners miners certainly have come under heavy pressure since the breakout of this conflict, and we have seen a bit of a rebound in some of our gold miners in particular from yesterday's sharp losses. The energy sector is also a touch weaker, having seen oil prices fall around 8-9% overnight. The Aussie dollar also a little bit weaker, in the red, just under 70 US cents at the moment. Tash?
James, thank you. Healthcare in remote and rural Australia has unique challenges that need unique solutions. Representatives for the sector have told politicians this morning. To tell us more, we're joined by the President of the Rural Doctors Association of Australia, Dr. Sarah Chalmers. Doctor, thanks so much for joining us. We know there have been so many challenges rural areas are facing at the moment, especially with their medical systems. What are some of these unique challenges?
So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. Some of the things that we've been talking about this morning have been around climate change and the flooding across North Australia. Of significant concern, though, is the increasing cost of fuel and the fuel shortages that are affecting all communities across Australia. But there's an exponential increase in costs in more remote places, and we are concerned about the effect that these rising costs will have on our ability to provide effective health services in these really remote places.
So what would you like to see from the government to change this and to make more opportunities available and for better medical needs in regional areas are fulfilled?
So what we're asking for is for decision makers to apply an equity lens when it comes to rural and remote communities. Fuel shortages will have significant effects on healthcare, so the ability for outreach services to reach more remote people, for delivery of resources, including medications, and also for patients who need to drive themselves into the city to access specialist care. There are also very remote communities who have their own power generated through diesel generators, and if they don't have sufficient fuel to run those generators, that's going to affect their water supply, and for patients who may have medical equipment that they need at home, those will also be affected.
So, Doctor, why do you think the voices of regional people aren't being heard?
I think in this particular case, everybody is affected by these increasing costs of fuel. And I think that it's very easy for Australians who live in major centres, and they make up 70% of the population. So they're a bigger voice and may not have considered the exponential effect that these fuel prices and the shortages are actually having on people in more rural and remote communities.
So important to give regional people a voice. We appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much, Doctor.
Thank you.
Artificial intelligence is rapidly reshaping Australian workplaces, but a new report suggests workers are not keeping up and it's costing our economy billions of dollars. Consumer Affairs editor Georgia Holland reports.
Good afternoon, Tash. More than 80% of workers are using AI on the job, but only 7% are doing it well. That's 5 million Australian employees classified as AI beginners. RMIT Online and Deloitte Access Economics did some modelling, and they found if half of those 5 million workers improved their AI skills, it could boost our economy by nearly $19 billion. Now, that's great for the economy, but it would also benefit the workers. This report found improving AI skills could mean a pay rise of between $7,000 to $11,000 per year.
When you look at what AI can do, it can make you automate a lot of tasks, which gives a lot of time back to workers, and that time can be spent improving processes, improving service design, and actually delivering productivity gains for the employer.
Now, at the same time, there is a lot of anxiety over AI in the workplace. Almost a third of workers are worried they'll lose their job. That's according to new research by Finder. There are, of course, jobs already being impacted, particularly in the admin and tech space, and entry-level positions, usually reserved for graduates, are also on the chopping block. But love it or hate it, AI, Tash, is here to stay.
It is indeed, Georgia. Thank you. Well, the weather details are coming up next with Tony Auden.
Cyclone Narelle set to return again, plus some hazardous surf on the east coast. I'll have all the details after the break.
Our Aussie Golden Girls have teamed up all in the name of high fashion. Margot Robbie and Kylie Minogue joining forces for a playful new Chanel campaign, with Margot recreating Kylie's legendary Come Into My World music video.
Kind of a full circle moment for me too, because the very first concert I ever went to was Kylie Minogue for the Fever Tour.
And Margot's recreated it, which is just brilliant. There's nothing that Margot can't do.
Indeed, it all started when Kylie was asked who she'd love to play her one day, and her answer was Margot. We've been given a first look at a new documentary about beloved naturalist Sir David Attenborough. The intimate film weaves together archival footage telling the story of baby gorilla Pablo and his descendants in the mountains of Rwanda.
On my feet, and I looked down there was little Pablo. Many people would think it was the most important sequence in that series, if not actually in my filmed life.
A Gorilla Story is directed by James Reed, who made My Octopus Teacher, and will be released on Netflix on the 17th of April. Well, Swifties, are you ready for it? There are new reports on the possible locations for Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's honeymoon. The couple has reportedly been planning a very extravagant getaway for weeks and have told family and friends that they will be completely, quote, off the grid. A source says the trip will take them from the Caribbean to Europe before they stop off in Asia and, wait for it, Australia. One Direction alumni Louis Tomlinson is set to return to Australia this October. The global chart-topping artist will kick off his Aussie leg of the How Did We Get Here World Tour in Melbourne before heading to Sydney and closing out in Brisbane. Pre-sale tickets will be available from 9 a.m. on Monday the 30th of March and general sale from Tuesday the 31st of March. And actress Julia Garner has long been rumoured to take on the role of Madonna in a biopic, but for fans, there hasn't been much movement on the project, at least not publicly. In the meantime, the duo has filmed this video. Fans have gone wild, hoping it's a sign a film may be on its way, but it turns out the pair is actually on the set of the hit Apple TV series, The Studio.
7 News is brought to you by Australian Made, by Australian. Back jobs, a stronger economy and the way we live right here.
Now let's check the latest weather details with 7 News meteorologist Tony Auden. Tony, good afternoon once again. Narelle, she isn't done yet.
Good afternoon, Tash. Yes, they say cats have 9 lives, but Cyclone Narelle isn't too far behind. At the moment, she's just a tropical low, but about to push out over water yet again. This system should be named a tropical cyclone again by late afternoon, then likely to straddle the coast, potentially as a severe cyclone over the next few days. It's even possible that Narelle could hit Perth with some wet and wild weather around Saturday. Now, in the meantime, sunny skies for the WA capital today, tracking for 28 degrees. Adelaide heating up, a top of 31, and Melbourne could rustle up an afternoon shower storm on 29. Onto the satellite, we have this low, not a tropical cyclone, set to sweep down past the east coast. Hazardous surf warnings have been issued for southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales coasts for tomorrow. Otherwise, a couple of troughs ambling around southern states here, including Bass Strait, and driving a little bit of instability. And that will continue tomorrow. Yet again, a possible afternoon shower storm on the forecast for Melbourne. That forecast top of 27. A couple of showers in around Hobart. Adelaide, just a possible sprinkle on 27, while Sydney's looking at beautiful blue skies on 28. Brisbane drying up as winds ease back. Then into Thursday, that instability moves further north. Canberra and Sydney could see a storm on 25 and 30 degrees respectively. Brisbane starts heating up at the end of the week, 32 on Thursday, even hotter on Friday. And Perth tracking for a dry top of 32. That's the latest weather, Tash. It's back to you.
Tony, thank you. Finally this afternoon, 7 determined dogs in China have pulled off an incredible journey home after being stolen. The cunning canines managed to chew their through their cage and escape a van. The pack, including golden retrievers, German shepherds and a little corgi leader, trekked nearly 16 kilometres along a busy motorway. The viral video showing the dogs sticking together the whole way, even one pup with an injured leg keeping up. And that's Seven's national news for this Tuesday. I'm Natarsha Belling. Thanks so much for your company. Stay with us. Alex Cullen is coming up next with Winning Arvo. Have a great day. Hope you can join us again tomorrow. Until then, good afternoon.